You are listening to Venture Beyond, Stories from Hidden Worlds. If you enjoy this episode, please leave a like down below and share with a friend. And, if you haven't already, subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode or new series and updates. My game of the year for 2025 is probably one of the best games I've ever played, and I can't wait to tell you why in my 100% no spoiler review. Let's talk Clair Obscur Expedition 33. If you haven't already heard something about this game, Expedition 33 is the debut game from a small, scrappy, and dedicated French studio, Sandfall Interactive. If I were to describe it by referencing other games, I would say that Persona and Elden Ring had a baby with the Louvre. It's an immersive, turn-based game that has real-time dodge and counter mechanics, as well as active QTEs to boost your abilities. Add in some of the best art direction and video game music of the decade, as well as an incredible character-driven story that you are not ready for, and you get what, I'd argue, is the best game of the decade so far. And I rather doubt another game will be able to contest that anytime soon. It has won its place in my heart as one of my favorite games I have ever played, competing with the likes of Mass Effect 3, Dragon Age Inquisition, Halo 3, Diablo 2, Persona 5, Cyberpunk 2077, and Elden Ring for the top spot, and I think it might just win outright. Story. In a shattered yet hauntingly beautiful dark fantasy world that is running out of time, our group of heroes, the titular Expedition 33, race to stop a being of unimaginable power, the Paintress, to save everyone they know and love before it is too late. In between you and her are hordes of bizarre creatures called Nevrons that will attack you on sight. There are so many layers to this story, twists, turns, and surprises, but none of them are unfair. You never feel like the game just smacks you in the face with a twist for the hell of it. Nothing is done just for shock value. There's no cheap tricks here, yet every step you take in the story shows just how little you could see before, even when the greater truths were there for you to see the whole time. Little things that seem like quaint little curiosities take on deeper, more profound meaning over time. And just when you think you have it all figured out, the next secret is revealed, making you question everything you know. There's a lot of themes at play here, and the interesting thing is that every twist, every turn of the story only deepens those themes. Expedition 33 explores the shouldering of legacy, family, self-sacrifice, grief, and one of the most in-depth meditations on the creative process I have ever seen, especially in a video game. There's moments of true wonder and spectacle, followed by crushing depths of emotional turmoil. You will laugh, you will triumph, you will feel powerful, but you will also lose. You will hurt, and you will cry. I know I did, more than once. And it does all of this while respecting your time, allowing you to choose. Do you want to stick to the straight and narrow playthrough? You certainly can, and get a very full experience. But if you explore not just the world, but also the characters and the different levels of the game mechanics, you will find so much more. Your expedition, as you might expect from the game name, is not the first to try to stop the Paintress. You see the impact, successes, and failures of those expeditions everywhere you go. You hear their final moments and journals. You find their ships, devices, and weapons littered about your trail, as well as their remains and campsites. In fact, your rest points, effectively bonfires from Dark Souls, are flags planted by previous expeditions, allowing you to retrace their steps and to feel what they felt. You see those nodes that allow you to climb or grapple? Someone actually put those there. There was an entire expedition of mountaineers and climbers just to blaze a trail for future expeditions to follow. There are 2 lines that are constantly repeated time and again that sum up these struggles. Tomorrow comes, and more importantly, for those who come after. This faith in the future, this furious determination to make their sacrifices count, was one of the most moving parts of the story to me. You literally step through the bones of your predecessors at every turn and push forward where they have fallen. This incredible attention to not just artistic but story detail, allowing you to feel the legacy of struggle you are stepping into, does so much to build this world, but also its history in a meaningful way. There's one area that is essentially a series of trenches, siege weapons, and hundreds upon hundreds of dead expeditioners. One can only imagine the battle that was fought there. It, like so many other areas, was incredibly moving. Expedition 33 has all of this play out through a group of well-written and even better acted characters, who each have their own motivations for pushing forward aside from mere survival. Each of these pursuits even further explore the game's themes, adding even more depth if you choose to get to know your team better. Lune shoulders the burden of research and development from her parents, whose legacy she constantly fears that she is not living up to. Ciel pushes on in a world where her true love was stolen away from her by a cruel twist of fate. Gustav puts on a brave face for his expeditioners in training and the rest of the team, while his own doubt claws away at him from within. Maëlle, an orphan who has never fully belonged anywhere, finds herself more at home outside the walls of the city she grew up in than she does within them. This is just scratching the surface of these stories, and you are not prepared for where they end up. These struggles and conflicts are not isolated. We see them share these worries and their thoughts on what the others are going through. These are people who have history with each other, and it shows. It really is quite satisfying to peek into that history over time. Gameplay. I've talked a bit about choice so far. Gameplay is where choice truly shines in this game. This game rewards exploration unlike any game I've ever played. Around every corner you can find one of 3 things. Something important, like quest items, optional boss fights, or story beats that can be missed. Something useful, like weapons, upgrades, or currency. Or something beautiful, like a music record to play at camp, or a piece of environmental storytelling. There's no detour that doesn't lead to something worth the time you put into it to go there. Maybe it isn't something you need now, or it could be a weapon you don't like, but it is something that matters. This is a sharp contrast to how exploration is handled in most modern games, which seem to focus on quantity rather than quality. In Expedition 33, each turn feels handcrafted, each path bespoke for your experience, each area made with care. Similarly, no level ever feels like it runs on too long. They seem to have this great instinct for when to change things up, so you are constantly running through something new. You always feel like you are going somewhere, instead of stuck in an endless purgatory. Combat is a lovely dance of traditional turn-based RPG structure with quick-time elements to enhance your skills and dodge or parry enemy attacks. The result is a system that is incredibly satisfying to get right. When you master dodge or parry timing, you become nearly invincible, and you can turn your enemy's attacks against them. Where other games would handle dodging or countering with a specific skill or some percentage chance, your skill determines your results in combat. This is incredibly powerful to the player experience and efficacy. If you lose, it is because you need to dial in your timing or rethink your strategy. Sure, from time to time, you just need to go grab a couple levels to bridge the gap, usually for the optional bosses in an area. But usually, the game gracefully scales to where your skill with timing will make the difference. You don't play the odds in this game, you make the odds. It's interesting playing a game like Metaphor Refantatio just before diving into this game. I'll not be going into an in-depth comparison of the two, but it's interesting to use Metaphor to consider a couple of factors since both games have a big emphasis on choice. They just approach it in very different ways. Where Metaphor really opens the book to you, allowing you to make any character, any class you want, and carry over skills from other classes they are trained in, Expedition 33 instead gives each character their own mechanics and a wide open set of skills, literally dozens, that explore these mechanics. We'll look at one character to show you what I mean. Mael switches between stances that modify her damage output or damage taken, depending on what skill she uses. She is exceptional at single target execution, with skills that do big damage. However, she also gets a surprising range of support options, allowing her to boost the team's defense or even taking hits for another character. But that's one character. Each one works in different ways. Every character has some kind of support options, like recovery, buffs, and so on, but loads of attack options that feed into their specific mechanics. Ciel builds up a meter on a target and then cashes in that buildup for extra damage or other effects with certain skills. This is when things get interesting, as she enters Twilight, which boosts her damage and how much meter she can build up. Lune's niche is using elemental attacks to fuel each other. Let's say one fire skill gives her 1 red point, and an ice skill can use that red point to boost damage, or an added effect. You basically keep dancing between elements to fuel more power into each turn. It's very satisfying to get each character's mechanics right, or use those mechanics to do something you need the character to do, like support. However, it doesn't stop at skills. Weapon choice is a massive component to buildcraft. Each weapon has scaling dependent on your stats, which is great, but they also have specific passive modifiers for the character. Maybe it's applying burn on a critical hit, or switching to a specific stance for Mael with a certain action, or the always satisfying 100% crit chance under certain circumstances. But there is one missing piece of the puzzle: Pictos and Lumina, which are passive upgrades that any character can equip. These take a good build between a weapon and skills and make them into a powerhouse that you'll be tinkering with and perfecting the entire game. Things like a 25% crit boost against burning enemies, or giving your allies a damage boost when that character heals them, are absolute game changers. Do you suck at dodging and parries like I do sometimes? Equip Energizing Pain and get an action point back every time you take a hit. And hey, if you survive, then you can use that huge attack that is super AP hungry to pay them back. Pictos and Lumina are the secret sauce that truly completes a build. I ended up making a build for Mael that allowed her to build up massive amounts of burn stacks on a target in one turn, and then nuke them with an attack that does more damage the more burn is on them. This was a build I have literally not seen anyone else make for Mael, and was something that I just had a crazy idea for once I started to see the pieces that would make that build work start to fall into place. I also crafted a build for CL that turned her into the main healer, and every time she healed the party, everyone got an omniboost to their stats. Then, every couple of turns, she could nuke a target with a massive attack. It is a system that rewards creativity. That, while making a bespoke set of skills and weapons to choose from for each character, leaves the book wide open for you to modify and enhance those to your heart's content, if you don't mind rolling up your sleeves and getting creative. Somehow, in making very specific, focused roles, weapons, skills, and mechanics, you get so many options to break those or completely redefine those mechanics. It never feels restrictive. Instead, when you find ways to break the mold, you feel so much more freedom than if the entire set of skills and weapons were laid bare for you to pick from. It is, honestly, the most rewarding buildcraft I have ever experienced in an RPG in my life. Choice also extends to how you experience the game's various levels. The game is far from a straight line. You can adventure and explore at every branch in a path, but also you can roam around the game's overworld, taking on optional fights or uncovering bits of story, even completely optional areas you wouldn't find otherwise. There's several micro levels that are basically a single gorgeous frame with a collectible. These areas don't offer some new gameplay challenge or anything, but instead leave you to wonder and marvel at the sight. The ancient Gestrel city I found particularly compelling as I wondered at what caused it to be abandoned and who survived the ordeal. There's moments like this hidden all across the game world, just waiting for you to find. Art direction. If it was just the story and the gameplay that were punching this hard, it would already be my game of the year for 2025. But Sandfall Interactive doesn't know how to half-ass or not over-deliver on every facet of the gaming experience. The art direction in this game is phenomenal. In an age of flashy, glitzy art direction in games with little substance, Expedition 33's breathtaking environments, character design, and set dressing have vital roles in storytelling. Not a single corner of a board is painted without purpose, and no two spots in a level feel exactly the same. I've seen complaints about how there is no mini-map in the game, and I have to wonder what the point would be. I actually never really got lost in the game, and found exploration to be more fulfilling without a hand-holding map, trying to make sure I find every nook and cranny. Sandfall calls their art style in the game dark fantasy inspired by Belle Epoque, and that just about sums it up about as well as you can in a single sentence. Every character and enemy design is wonderfully intricate, telling you something about them and their style. Mael's uniform is much more military, utilitarian fencing gear and fashion, in keeping with her more guarded, distant personality. CL's is more revealing, with sashes and ribbons reflecting her casual confidence and mystique. Enemies each have their own personality and style. A Galt feels so different from, say, a cultist. There's an interesting line that an NPC says that kept coming up in my mind after. Nevrons reflect their environment, and this is true in more ways than their elemental affinity. The Nevrons embody different aspects of the concepts that shape the area you are in. The first level is set in an area littered with ruins of buildings, and the Nevrons there similarly seem ancient, built from worn stone, tarnished metal, and overgrown with vines. But the symbolism goes much deeper than that. Echoes of the past lurk around every corner. Here you see the aftermath of an ambush. There, a desperate last stand. Over there, a pitched battle long lost. Further down, expeditioners who simply ran out of time. Broken and tattered remains of their efforts lay strewn about the world. There's so many moments, half buried or weathered away with time. So many struggles that ultimately failed. So many hopes and dreams crushed. I could talk for hours about the intricacies of the art direction, the symbolism of each element, how it all comes together to tell a vivid story even without words. But that would just get into spoiler territory that I refuse to cross into in this review. Just understand that very little is or should be taken at face value. Everything has a deeper, more profound meaning that only deepens the further you go. And these gorgeous designs are not static. The animation team lovingly brings these characters to life with expressive, fluid animation. Every moment drips with style and personality, not just to be flashy like some games might. Attack animations feel brutal, and often generously telegraph timing to help you time dodges and parries. Though there are quite a few that are straight up sucker punches, or such an unforgiving onslaught of attacks that all I can say is, good luck dodging that. I feel like you could show me a still from any part of this game and I'd be able to identify that it came from Expedition 33 and would probably know exactly where that is. There's a few games I feel like that with, like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and so on, but this game in particular is so great at building the visual language and identity of each location that there is nothing that feels samey, unless it is supposed to feel that way. And even that has variations. Related to art direction is the motion performance for the characters, in the cinematics that these play out in. The team that worked on motion capture for this game deserves every single award they can get in the category. I remember watching the first cinematic between Mael and Gustav and feeling my jaw drop at the nuanced expressions and little micro gestures that were brought to life on the screen. I remember saying out loud, "Oh my god, the eyes." And I'm telling you, these are the most expressive eyes you have ever seen in a video game. The characters' eyes say so much about them, but also what they are saying. You can feel the encroaching doubt in Gustav in his eyes, and you can see the other characters feel this, even though he puts on a brave face. It's really quite shocking. And all of this without going into cartoonishly over-emoting territory. By the way, quick aside, I've been following Maxence Cazorla, one of the mocap performers and voice of Esquier, on X ever since the game came out, and he puts up clips from the motion capture sessions with comparison to the final version in the game. I'm absolutely floored by these glimpses into the performance, and you should totally check them out. It also helps that Maxence seems like a pretty awesome guy, and I hope I get to meet him someday, even if it is just to shake his hand. I'd love to have anyone on the Expedition 33 team on my podcast at any time, even if it is just the janitor. Just putting that out there. You'll never have a more gracious host. Anyway, back to the review. Sound. How would you like your story-rich gameplay juggernaut of a beautiful game to also have some of the best voice acting in video games? Seriously, there isn't a single slouch in this cast. You can really tell they are giving it everything they've got to live up to the visual powerhouse that this game is. You can feel the layers of expression in their voice, just like in the animation and motion capture. Of course, there's the big names in the English cast like Andy Serkis as Renoir, which was absolutely inspired casting. Charlie Cox as Gustav was quite moving, I thought as well. Interestingly, it seems like Charlie Cox is rather surprised at just how well regarded his performance is, which rather makes me hope we'll see more voice performances from him in the future. Jennifer English turns in a fantastic performance as Mael, probably the best I've ever heard from her, and that's saying something. It's intriguing comparing her performance here to her role as Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3. They're rather different, so she isn't just trying to play the same character. I actually just started the game over for New Game Plus and switched the audio over to French to see how the performances are there, and I wonder if English might have based some of her performance on her French counterpart, Charlotte Hofner. Feel free to make fun of my French pronunciation there, because when I first heard the French performance, I could have sworn it was Jennifer English speaking French. The vocal qualities, nuance and tone and emphasis, it all sounded like the English Mael I had just spent 84 hours with. This isn't to say that the rest of the cast are slouches, with Ben Starr, Christy Ryder, Shayla Nix, Rich Keeble, and Maxence Cazorla putting in some amazing work here. Each of them makes an incredible mark on this game, with Rich Keeble delivering some fantastic comedic relief right when it is desperately needed. Can't always be a tears and feels fest. No one fell short here and more than earned their place in the credits. The sound effects in this game are also top-notch, giving depth and impact to the gorgeous visuals. Attacks have a crushing weight to them. Explosions pop that much more with bone-shaking heft. There's even a really neat, subtle audio cue to tell you when you've been spotted by an enemy, or the time to pull off a dodge on specific attacks. It's really smart design that just works. But we can't talk sound without talking about this monster of a soundtrack. If Lorien Testard does not win Best Soundtrack at every award show, you know that nothing is sacred, everything is rigged, and the award shows are bogus. I am very, very picky when it comes to music. Your soundtrack really has to capture something in me for me to give it more than a listen through. There has not been a single day since I started playing this game that I haven't put on at least something from the game. You've been listening to some of my favorites already. Lorien stated that one of his influences was the Nier soundtrack. You can definitely hear it, but he isn't just imitating the likes of Keiichi Okabe. Not by a long shot. Every area has its own feel. And I don't just mean every level. Most levels have several different tracks depending on what part of the level you are in, and this also extends to battles. Yes, there is no one battle theme for the whole game. It shifts and changes to match the area or the kinds of enemies in the battle. Once I realized that, I was so hooked. Even if there's a track you don't like, and sure, there's a couple I'm not wild about, you only have to hang with it for possibly an hour at the most before the sounds start to change. You never have enough time for the theme to get old or turn sour. Sometimes the tracks will come back in a fight, and even the ones I didn't like, I was like, oh hey, it's that one. There's 154 songs in this soundtrack. I guarantee one is going to get its hooks in you. There's something I haven't really touched on too much yet, but there's a big theme in the game of exploring the creative process. You have an idea, inspiration, you make drafts and variations, approach the idea in different ways, until you hit the right note. This theme actually plays out in the music as well. There's several themes that you will hear come back here and there through the game, be it the melody of Lumiere or the bass line of another song or a more frantic, desperate version of a battle theme. You see several motifs that return in various forms through the course of the game, either in the same area or in somewhere very different. None of this is by accident. Where many games might take a piece, touch it up with different instrumentation, and slap it somewhere as a new piece, Expedition 33's music grows and changes over the course of the game in a meaningful way. It's trying to tell you something. It's trying to be something new, or look at the ideas in a different way. And that's all before talking about the incredible vocal performances of Victor Borba and Alice Duport-Purser. Dear God, they make this soundtrack get its claws into your soul. Alice is absolutely the star here, with her voice carrying you through the hardest of boss fights, the most serene of locales, and the most crushing of emotional moments. And her voice literally never gets old. There's something so perfect about it. She's such an integral part of this game's oral identity. The first thing you hear when you load up the game is her breathtaking performance of Alicia on the menu screen. Then you hit New Game and are greeted by one of my favorite pieces in the entire game, Lumiere, and the soundtrack never lets up even for a moment. Value for money. I would buy this game twice. I'm not even exaggerating. It is just that good. The fact that this game is on Game Pass is absolutely bonkers. Similarly bonkers is they're selling this titan of a game for $50 new. In an age where new games are being pushed for $60, $70, and now even talk of $80 for games not even half as good or as long as this game. And here comes what I'd argue is one of the best games ever made for a modest $50. A game I got 84 hours out of and have already started my second playthrough of is just mind-boggling. There's legitimately no reason not to buy this other than RPGs not being your thing. Or you stick to older games, don't have the hardware to run it, whatever. Otherwise, if you are sleeping on this game, you are grievously missing out. Put down the 29th copy of Madden, toss the latest Call of Duty wet fart, flush Fortnite down the toilet where it belongs. Get in here and enjoy something handcrafted and made with real love again. There's lots of good eating here, and they are practically giving it away. Overall, this game is a perfect 10 out of 10. I never, ever thought I would have a perfect 10 out of 10. But hey, to be fair, I'd never played Clair Obscur Expedition 33 when I thought that. Are there some things I might change? A couple of scene transitions are a bit hard. There's the occasional tiny visual glitch that is a bit annoying, and I kind of wish I could fast travel from flag to flag across different levels, but I could see that being a bit of a nightmare to implement. But the main thing I would want different is more to see, more shops, more side stories, more to do at the casinos, more to do with the grandees. I just want more. That's exactly how you should feel after playing something so satisfying. Interestingly enough, that feeling is rather thematically appropriate. I am not exaggerating when I say this is probably my favorite game I've ever played. It feels like it was made specifically for me, which is crazy because I jokingly blame the French for everything bad that ever happens. Guess I'll have to change the joke to something else, like the Dutch. It's important to reiterate that this comes from a small but mighty studio with several team members who left major studios like Ubisoft in order to make this team. In an age of ever more bloated budgets and teams pouring into ever more broken, hollow, directionless, and legitimately not fun games, this comparatively tiny team has released a title that shows the entire industry once again what a small, dedicated, talented team can do with a consistent, powerful direction. Every studio, developer, and producer should be looking at this game and this team and figure out why they aren't delivering on the same level as Sandfall. I refuse to believe that other teams don't have the same passion or talent or couldn't have the same level of dedication and consistency of direction. There is a sickness in the industry right now, and I think Sandfall shows that it doesn't have to be this way, offering one possible solution. I think the rest of the industry would be foolish to ignore it. Every note of this game is played to perfection. The story is one of the best to ever be put to a video game. The gameplay is intensely satisfying, so much so that it's difficult to go back to other RPGs. The art direction is out of this world. The sound and music is absolutely sublime, and they are practically giving this game away, delivering the best value for money this decade. I believe this is easily the best game I've played in the past 10 years, and I play a lot of games. There have been so many incredible games in the past 10 years, even through all the stinkers, but nothing has quite touched my soul like this game has. I adored Cyberpunk 2077, Elden Ring is easily my favorite Souls game, Persona 5 was an amazing time that I'm dying to run through a second time, and there are many others I could talk about for hours, but Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is truly an unforgettable, unparalleled experience that I'm likely to jump back into time and again for years to come. I can't recommend this game enough. It really is just that special. If you have Game Pass, you literally have no excuse to not at least try it. Play the first hour. Play the first real level. And if you aren't hooked by then, I'd be pretty surprised. Well, I've spent enough time talking about what I think. What do you think about the game? Good or bad? Let's try to avoid outright spoilers in the comments, please. I don't want to ruin things for people who haven't played it yet. If you all are interested, I have been thinking about doing some deep dives into different elements of the game's story, design, and so on. There's so much to talk about with this game. I really am barely scratching the surface here. Until next time, let's talk.